Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory release, as we've got another of the Strike Attacks. This is the Chasmosaurus, and this is one that I was definitely excited about. I love Chasmosaurus, as I've mentioned in previous Chasmosaurus reviews. This was always one of my favorite, if not my favorite, ceratopsian growing up, so it is really cool to see it entering the Mattel line. You can see, as far as the packaging goes, you've got pretty much, of course, your standard Strike Attack packaging going on, and then here on the back, kind of a preview of the figure as well as the others that are in this wave, all of which we have reviewed except for one. So let's pop this out of the box and check it out. So here is our Chasmosaurus, and the legs are absolutely not positioned correctly. There we go, kind of, I think. And it looks pretty nice. Again, the only thing that's a big bummer for me when it comes to this one is kind of like a similar situation to when Mattel had released their Pentaceratops, where when the head is like not in its action pose, it's always kind of leaning down, making the dinosaur just look super, super depressed or feeding, I guess. And then you have to push the button, which clearly you can see the action feature. You push the button and then the head comes up. So I think it always looks way nicer like that, rather than being down like that. So straight away, that's a little bit of a bummer for the figure, but overall it does look pretty nice as far as the sculpt goes. Kind of nice as far as the paint goes. So let's go ahead and jump to a closer look and check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Chasmosaurus, you can see the skin texture looks pretty nice. Up here in the snout, I feel like it looks okay, maybe even a little washed out in a few areas, but not too bad. But as you move back closer toward the frill and the eye area, like the eye socket area and stuff, you can see some really nice, really vibrant scale detail pick up. And as you lead up into the frill, you can see the scale detail absolutely pops on the figure. We also have a very cool patterning up here on the insides of the frill. You can see as we have like a black tone that patterns very nicely. Again, nothing overly flashy, nothing overly unnatural as far as the patterning and coloration and everything goes. We have kind of like a very interesting, almost like a sort of reddish or pinkish tone here for the face. And of course you can see that the horns for our dinosaur are painted out with a dark gray. They're also nicely sculpted. You can see some nice cracks and crevices within those horns. We can see the beak is also painted. Again, same deal with the nice detailing within the horns. You have kind of like a greenish tone there for the beak. As you can see, it's not absolutely perfectly painted, as there's a little area right here running up that's not painted, but it doesn't look bad at all. You can see the nostrils sculpted out, and the eye is painted with a yellow, given a black pupil. Again, a little tiny bit sloppy as far as the paintwork of the eye goes, but looks pretty decent for the most part. Unfortunately, as you can see, the spikes that move around the frill are unpainted. They're very nicely sculpted, but they are unpainted, which is not something that's uncommon when it comes to Mattel. But overall, again, I think the head sculpt looks really nice, especially again for a Chasmosaurus. It is a very nice looking head sculpt and definitely a very, very cool species entering the Mattel line. As you move into the back of the frill, you can yet again see some more really beautiful scale detail. I'd imagine with a repaint, this one could really pop. Moving back into the neck, you start to see the body kind of transition to a greenish tone, but we still have more of the coloration that we see up in the head moving along the back of the Chasmosaurus. And similar to what we had seen on a different figure recently from Mattel, I can't remember which one it was, but I do remember seeing the coloration on the back being slightly different. I think it might have been the Monolophosaurus, where you can see that the tone of color is slightly different compared to what you see for the rest of the color up there. And you have that same thing going on with the Chasmosaurus right there, and again for the Jurassic Facts app code right there. So it does look a little out of place and a little bit strange as far as that goes. But as you can see, moving back, we've got some ridges kind of following along the spinal column. Not too many, just a few here and there. You also have some really bumpy scales, very kind of like osteoderm-like scales moving through the figure. We can also see in the greenish areas we've got a speckling, like a really heavy speckling of like a black that speckles through pretty much the entire figure. Again, the skin texture looks really nice. You can see the rib cage right there. The lighter tone also kind of like leaks down, that kind of like pinkish sort of tone leaks down there along the side, but it disappears as you lead out here into the hip region. Moving down into the legs, you can see the legs are nicely sculpted. The muscle definition, of course, for both the front and rear legs is very nicely done. And yet again, the scale detail absolutely pops on the figure. And my camera's probably going to mess with this one as far as the colors go because it is green. So I'm going to have to hold it at a distance as per usual. But again, the muscle definition looks really nice. The skin texture looks really nice, really vibrant as you move down down into the foot sculpt. The toes are sculpted quite beautifully. You again have the nails sculpted, but no actual nail paint. You can see again how heavy that speckling is, though, through the course of the figure. Same deal back here for the rear leg. Again, nice big bulging calf muscle. Again, decent looking foot sculpt. You've got like kind of a satin shine here, like a gloss coat for the nails on the rear foot. Doesn't really look like we have it so much for the front foot, kind of, but it looks a lot shinier on the rear foot, interestingly enough. But then you move back up here, you've got a few skin wrinkles back behind the thigh leading out into the tail, and again some more bumpy scales leading out. You've also got a really nice curve to the tail moving out there through the course of the tail. On the underside, again, the skin texture looks really nice, and again, an absolute overload of those speckles, potentially the most speckled figure I've ever seen from Mattel. And you can see the opposing side, the figure pretty much looks the same. Again, the overall texturing, everything looks pretty much the same. You can see the rib cage shining in the lower part of the stomach, and again, the legs are really only looking a little bit different on this side, as they're just kind of a little bit further forward compared to what we see on the initial side, and then the tail kind of curves away from us. But that's really about it. As far as articulation goes, forward and back for the legs, and yes, they do come out away from the body, which you can see. Very nice as far as articulation for a ceratopsian goes. And then again, legs here in the back go forward and back, and also out away from the body. Not a whole lot, but you can see there's definitely some wiggle room there. And then you do have the swivel right there. And then, of course, the articulation in the neck, which we had already seen, which was part of the action feature. Again, you have to push this button, and you have that head ramming action feature. We also have the Jurassic Facts app code if you would like to add this one to your collection, but definitely a pretty cool looking Chasmosaurus. As far as the size goes, it's going to definitely be pretty much the standard size range you get when it comes to like a Danger Pack or Strike Attack Ceratopsian, a little over 7 inches or right around 18 centimeters, and then for a height in the position it's currently in, about 3 3/4 inches or 9.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon in the Collect A Human Being next to our Mattel Chasmosaurus, and you can see again it's pretty much exactly as you would expect it to be, especially next to that Colovosaurus. You can really get a good idea of the size. And then honestly, I feel like we really only need one more comparison. Here is the more recently released, I think it was like the Danger Pack version of the Avaceratops next to the Chasmosaurus, and you can very clearly see they're pretty much the same size. So when it comes to other ceratopsians like this, like the Styracosaurus and stuff we've already had in the past, you can see again they're going to fall right there in the same similar size range here with this Chasmosaurus. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory Strike Attack Chasmosaurus is pretty fun. Again, it's definitely exciting to now have a Chasmosaurus in the line. Mattel has released some really cool ceratopsians, many different ceratopsian species over the years, and they continue to do so with some really nice entries. And this one for sure is a nice entry because, as I've mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Chasmosaurus. I have been since I was a kid, so it is really cool to have a nice, articulated version with a nice action feature and stuff, and just generally nice to have one in the Mattel line. And I think the figure looks really cool. The sculpt is very highly detailed, really nice when it comes to the skin texture through the course of the body, and very vibrant detailing on the figure. The paint apps are pretty decent, but nothing really to rave about. It just looks kind of a little bit bland, I guess. Like, it doesn't look exciting, but it doesn't look bad by any means. It's just, it is what it is. I do like the speckling that there is, pretty abundantly through the course of the figure. Nail paint definitely would have helped, and of course painting these spikes around the frill, but it's still pretty decent for what it is. The only thing that I think personally is a downside for this one is the fact that, again, the head is always leaning down. I feel like it would just look better if the head weren't always leaning down, again looking like the depressed Pentaceratops that we had in the past, but it is what it is, I guess. One way or another, if you are interested in picking this up, head to your local Walmart, because that seems to be where they're showing up pretty much all over the place, I would think, at this point. So make sure you check Walmart, grab this if you can, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.